अस्सलाम वालेकुम दोस्तों, ਕੀ ਹਾਲ ਚਾਲ ਹੈ। ਉਮੀਦ ਕਰਨੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦੋਸਤ ਵੀਰ ਭਰਾ ਖੈਰੀਅਤ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਣਗੇ। ਦੋਸਤੋ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਕ ਆਪਾਂ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇਖਣੀ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਇੱਕ ਕੈਥੋਲਿਕ ਹੈ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਉਹ ਨਾਸਟਿਕ ਹੈ, ਐਥੀਇਸਟ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਧਰਮਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਤਾਲਿਆ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਆਖਰਕਾਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਨੂੰ ਅਪਣਾਇਆ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੀ ਤਰਫ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਇਆ।
That idea of God doesn't exist in kind of your English, Western, Abrahamic framework of what God is and what religion is. That idea of directly interacting with God doesn't exist at all. On my YouTube, there's all sorts of Islam debates, speakers' corners videos. And so eventually one of Bhagavad Gita came up. One of the ones, it was very recently before they passed away, of them debating Muhammad Hijab on Speaker's Corner. And I remember watching it, and it was the edited version that Muhammad Hijab had posted, and he tried to make himself look good, but he still didn't make himself look. I think watching that, I was more intrigued about who is this character, Bhagavad Gita, and then what is the Sikhi that he's speaking of that I'd never really heard much about. I went back, I was like, let's read Guru Granth Sahib, because I've done that for every other faith. I've read their religious texts. Obviously, Guru Sahib is not just a text. So I started reading Gurbani literally from the start. So I'm reading Moon Mantra in English. Like, what is going on here? Because that's the thing about Gurbani, it doesn't tell you. As you can learn about what Amrit is here, and learn about, what Naam is here, and learn about what Gyan is here, you have to read all of it. Eventually you get a collective understanding. Guru Sahib has done that on purpose. And it makes you more introspective, and it changes the way that you read. When you're just reading, expecting everything to be handed to you, there's no kind of personal interaction there. You're just almost letting yourself get taught in a very non-personal way. But the way that Gurbani is written doesn't do that. The way that Gurbani is written makes you foster a personal connection with Gurbani. When you come to Guru Granth Sahib's Charan, they're going to change your karam. When you put your head on the ground, that's going to change your karam. What's the selling point of Sikhi? And I think that's also a cop-out question, because there's a million different selling points of Sikhi. We're saying all these things are less valuable because they're also somewhere else. But that's the beauty, is that it's here in Sikhi all together as one formula.
Welcome back to another episode of the BOS TV podcast series, the Finding Sikhi series, where we look at the lives of many amazing souls that have come on this path of Sikhi. We've done 5 or 6 episodes now, and today we're very blessed to have Bishan Singh with us here today. So thank you so much, VG, for joining us, and of course by Amarpreet Singh ji.
The identity thing, man.
So Guru Kirpa, we had this conversation a few years ago about starting this series, and it was an idea that VG had, and Guru Kirpa, the feedback from the Sangat has been fantastic, right, when it comes to the episodes?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Thank you to, as always, the Basics or Sikhi team for making this idea a reality, I guess. The idea came from talking to lots of Singhs from up and down the country who were involved in various projects, and the idea was to just look at stories and experiences, and the feedback's been phenomenal, from a number of views to interactions to just people pulling me over from my own family and my own friend circle saying, I watched this episode, it really made me think, really made me kind of reflect on sometimes their own journey, their own purpose. And some of the episodes I know coming up that we'll be recording over the next few days and years and weeks, I know people will start questioning how they've dealt with experiences and things like grief and situations, and really providing hope and love for the Guru through this podcast.
100%, and that's what's so powerful about the Finding Sikhi series, is that I think one of the key things it does is that it creates this form of relatability with the Sangat, while looking at people's journeys and learning from their highs and their lows, and they can apply that into their lives. And today, like I said, we have Bishan Singh here today. What is the theme of today's podcast?
So we'll let Bishan Singh obviously talk about his experiences as well, but one thing when I spoke to Bishan Singh, and you came highly recommended. I'm not sure if you're allowed to say that, if that sounds a bit dodgy or anything, but Bishan Singh's story came highly recommended. So if anyone does want to recommend people, please do get in touch through whatever means you can. Find us on social media or talk to one of us.
Links in the description anyway for that.
Absolutely. And Bishan Singh's name came a few times to talk about his perspective of how he found Sikhi from. I'll just summarise what I know, but obviously Bishan Singh's not actually your original name either, by the way, in case and you can talk a little bit about that, but kind of coming through finding Sikhi through research, asking questions, and I think that's what fascinated me when I heard the story, and why I wanted to ask Baji to come onto the podcast. So welcome, Baji, and So yeah, who are you basically?
Who am I? That's a good question. I think so. My background, just to start, I'm from quite a middle class white background. Grew up in Nottingham, and my family's pretty normal. And for us, some people in my family, you have to ask them individually, but most of them will probably identify as atheists or, cultural Christians. So we have this idea of like a typical Punjabi household where there's a little bit of Sikhi, but not that much, Sunday Sikhs. But actually, like, for most Christians, they'll go to the church like maybe once or twice a year. And that's kind of my experience of faith growing up. It was very kind of detached, kept away. It was your choice whether you interacted with it or not, and that was open, but you weren't forced in any way towards it. And most people, because of that, kind of fall away from their faith a little bit in the modern world, in this country.
So would your parents be following faith, or were they also the similar mindset where they've just fallen off the kind of faith?
So my parents I think they both consider themselves agnostic, but they're very open. They probably just have their own beliefs, really. And me coming to Sikhi, because of that, they don't really have a problem with it or anything like that. They're very open to it.
Right.
And I'm very lucky in that sense. So they're not rigid. They're not telling me, oh, don't do this because it's not how we brought you up.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky that actually they say this is how we brought you up, to make a kind of decision for yourself.
Yeah, nice.
And what about yourself then? Was you agnostic? Was you atheist growing up?
It's a good question. I've been all sorts over time, I think.
Change with the weather.
Kids change their mind a lot, don't they? I think that's kind of what it was. So I think there came a point where I went from being a stubborn atheist to agnostic. And then maybe 3 months later than that, I was Amritpari. So,
Oh, wow.
it was a bit like...
That's quite quick in that sense. So in terms of, you mentioned your family were normal, that makes me laugh. Like, what does normal mean as daily?
Yeah.
But I appreciate what you're trying to imply, that they were just kind of normal English families in that sense.
Yeah.
Just siblings as well?
No, I'm only child.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think people always say that explains a lot.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
That's the tip of my tongue. I'm just joking. But that explains the cat now.
Mittens?
Mittens, yeah.
Mittens, yeah. Brilliant. And so you obviously, it's beautiful when you are an only child, because your parents pour everything they have into you in that love. And I think it's quite a beautiful thing when you said that your parents said this is how we brought you up, to make those decisions and to be confident in the way you want to live. And that.
Yeah, I sometimes kind of say, like, I don't know if I would have come into Sikhi so quickly if I had siblings. Because then you've got someone else judging you that will judge you and will like tell you what you're doing. Like,
of course.
And because I didn't have that, I think it helped me, because I was kind of a bit more mastana in that sense.
Yeah. You know what, it's beautiful to hear you just using Punjabi words. I think there's people out there who won't even understand what mastana is.
This is what sangatam is. You forget that you're even doing it.
And your pronunciation is bang on as well. So respect.
Looking forward to this episode in terms of VG journey. There's already so many questions based upon stuff that you've been saying as well. So just before we, come to the Sikhi element of your journey, is there anything else from your childhood that I'd like to point out in terms of, experiences? You said you were atheist. How did that occur? Was it just because of family, or was it certain things that you saw?
It was definitely partly because of family.
Yeah.
It's kind of just the expectation. You just grow up. There's not much interaction with faith unless you make that choice yourself. I have family that have kind of been quite religious. On my dad's side, they're more religious. And in fact, my great granny, so my dad's granny, she was originally a Protestant Christian, and she converted to be a Catholic. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
And
I spent a number of years in Catholic schools, so the idea of converting to Catholicism is something which is quite a big. It seems like within the same faith, but it's almost looking at practicing the faith differently.
Yeah.
And then what was your you also mentioned you had a link to Punjab, which we found fascinating.
So I had so my dad's grandpa, he was deployed in Punjab in World War One. And then luckily recently a family member gifted me a trinket from Punjab, and I've got a picture of a photo as well of him deployed there. So that was mad when I found out, because it wasn't until recently that I found out. It's almost like,
that's
like
such it's a weird, because my wife always talks about this idea of within your DNA you carry things from generations in your DNA. So there's this trauma in your family So the Punjabi community might have something of like 1947, that trauma, and that or 84, that trauma continues through your DNA through generations, and there's something from your grandpa which continued in your DNA to awaken something.
At least, And in terms of that, but also in terms of, I think, the way my family think, they're quite not just open-minded but very inquisitive. Like, it's never just to believe what you've been told, if you know what I mean. There's always more to it. And I'm quite lucky to have been brought up around that. Where I was always asking why, if you know what I mean.
And I think I mentioned it earlier, born and bred in Nottingham. And what was it like in terms of the community growing up in school? Did you have much interaction with different faiths and people of different backgrounds?
Yeah, so the village I grew up in is quite heavily white.
Okay.
But literally the school 20 minutes away was quite diverse. So it wasn't like I didn't know what a Sikh was or anything like that. It was just you don't learn about it. Especially in a place like Nottingham, it's diverse, but it's not like the Midlands where we are now, or like Birmingham area where, there's a bit of a, like, diversity is stronger here, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There it's like, you've just got a few token students in the class. It feels diverse when you've grown up there. But compared to being here or like Slough,
Oh, don't mention Slough. I'm not bring Slough into this. Oh my, come on, people. I was gonna say, come to Midlands, it's like you've gone back 10 years, and then he drops Slough. Oh, no.
Smashed it.
Oh, fine. And was there any Jure wale kids or any kids with guttiyan in your school?
Yeah, there was in my primary school and in my secondary school, but not like in like way younger years and older years.
So not in
my year, no. But there was, yeah.
So tell us about this journey then, from being in primary school, being in high school, how we get into the stage of, like you mentioned earlier, being an atheist, then become agnostic, and then coming towards the path of Sikhi.
Okay, I'd say it started. Well, let's start from kind of my reading. So I've always been into reading.
Yeah.
Just casually, non-fiction. In terms of reading up on philosophies, I'd say that probably started around like year 10, where I properly started like caring about reading and studying politics, studying philosophy, just in my spare time, being a bit of a nerd basically. And
best life.
Yeah, basically. And that evolved in kind of like when I was in sixth form, so year 12, that evolved from reading up on philosophies like Stoicism, nihilism, things like that, to kind of thinking about faith as well. It's almost like I felt like it was something I was like neglected in my kind of,
Readings
in my reading, or it just didn't, I felt like I was quite ignorant to it because of the upbringing I'd had, where I was like, you don't interact with it much. It's someone else's thing. It's not for you to care about. But that's a very Western concept, isn't it? Of like leaving people to their faith without, questioning it or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, I was kind of curious about things like Islam, especially because there was a lot of Muslim students in my sixth form. So, you had the old person trying to like, I remember one time, so before I'd even read the Quran or expressed much interest in it, I just started asking a Muslim friend I had. It was during Ramadan, and I asked him like just a little bit about Islam, and he gets the Quran out of his bag and gives it to me.
Wow.
I noted like he had like all sorts of post-it notes in it and things, and he gave that to me to read, and I was like, yeah. And he just didn't say anything. He was like, read that. I was like, okay, and I did, and it's interesting.
What are your reflections on the Quran?
I'd say you have to kind of separate things out. You're like there's truth in everything, isn't it? And so to be respectful, you can always bring some good out of it. And especially even more recently reading like Punjabi commentary and more like adhyatmic, so more spiritual, esoteric commentaries on things like the Quran and other Islamic texts. You realize there's a lot of spirituality to be drawn out of it. It's just not what most people draw out of it. But it's there. Yeah.
That's interesting. I was reading something literally 2 nights ago, and he's talking about this idea of that's where the Sufism got traction in Punjab, because what the Sufis did, they took the concept of bhakti, of the spiritual side of Islam and then of Hinduism, and that bhakti movement, and gave it something, gave it a purpose and a movement and an idea, which was almost taken away from the mainstream version of Islam, which is fascinating.
I think both ends of the spectrum resonate with people, different people. So, some people they love order and structure, and so they're going to be like Maryada, obsessed in, not in a bad way, but like that's going to be the way that they kind of bring
Practice their
themselves
faith,
further
yeah.
towards Sikhi or whatever spiritual path it is. Or some people prefer the more kind of spiritual route where they're not thinking of it in terms of what is the rule for this. You know, that's how Gurbani is. Gurbani is not, prescriptive, if you know what I mean. Gurbani gives us what happens when you do this. Gurbani gives us spiritual concepts. And it's for us to use our buddhi to kind of figure that out.
Fantastic. And just with that instance then, so you've picked up the Quran and you started to read the Quran. And because again, like most people, when I was at school as well, my friends would obviously try and put a bit of a pressure on me that, you know, why don't you follow this path, otherwise you're going to go to hell. Not to say that happened to you, unless I did, please share. So how did you then go from, what happened after that? Did you keep looking into Islam? Did you look at other faiths?
That's when the click was in terms of reading about other faiths. And so the next thing I picked up was King James Bible. So I started reading the King James Bible. Because ironically, growing up as a Christian, I never actually bothered to kind of even have a look through or, you know, or read much of the Bible. And so my only experience of hearing the Bible was at readings at church, where someone else is giving it to you. And there was no kind of, I hadn't read the Bible at all. And so I read the Bible. Bible's very similar in terms of, you know, there's things in there that are questionable or outdated or whatever else. But there's also a lot of spiritual truths in there that you can derive from it, especially in terms of the Bible, a lot of stories that have like good moral messages.
And did you read them the Quran and Bible cover to cover then?
Eventually, yeah. It wasn't like, I didn't, you know, sit and read it like a novel, you know, but it was like kind of, you know, going through it, going to this bit to learn about this and things like that. Yeah, and eventually I kind of had
finished the...
Yeah.
And if you had to compare the Quran and the Bible, I know you said they're similar, but what makes them similar?
I'd say they developed from very similar societies, and you can tell that.
Yeah.
And so the cultural tropes are very similar. And then the spiritual theology is, you know, almost identical. There's obviously little things like the Trinity, which are, you know, the big debate topics. But in terms of the basis of it, and they're very, very similar theologically. You know, this idea of a kind of separate God that's separate from the world, that you interact with kind of through prayer still, and through almost bhakti in a way, but not the same as kind of Sikhi, let's say.
Yeah, because we would fundamentally believe that God can be experienced, God can be felt, God can be seen through every single one of us, where they have this separation, isn't it, of us and God being somewhere else, I guess.
And we describe that, and the Gurbani talks about it all the time. It's like, that is a form of agyan, that's a form of a lack of knowledge, isn't it? That there's a certain level of understanding they have that there is a God, but, you know, what form does that God come in? Is that God everywhere? That takes a little bit more kind of...
I mean, this probably sounds this sounds really... When I first understood this concept and I started listening to Islamic preachers or Christian preachers, and I worked in a Catholic school, so I had a lot of their talks, and their priests would come in and share mass, etc. And I found, for me, I always thought to myself, like, if we see God in all, we would always aim to do best for all. Never, even if I don't agree with someone's life choices, the way they look, act, but I'll always still see God in them. And that would always stop me from being bad towards them. Because if you don't see God in all, that concept, that's when you start, you know, you get some real bad stuff. And we know, you know, some negative press around even the crusades and the jihads and stuff like that. And it almost, for me, gave it a context of why people could do that so easily and just kill off populations of people who don't believe the same as them because of the lack of, like you said, agyan, the ignorance of not seeing God.
And then from that, there's a lack of compassion sometimes.
And then what happens after you read King James Bible?
So I started reading the Bhagavad Gita, and that was when I was like, okay, I like this. This feels more. I took more of that for my own personal life, reading the Gita, and that was really interesting. And then reading other kind of Hindu texts, Buddhist texts.
So how old are you at this time, by the way? Are you still in sixth form? Or
this is all in year 12.
Okay, wow, you did a lot of reading. Did you do?
Yeah, this is all in like from the start of year 12.
Did you pass the exams at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
He's at university. He's doing a degree, so it wasn't all bad.
Okay, then.
Yeah, it doesn't take up that much of my time, but I think I was just kind of slowly, casually doing it.
But it's all. I think when it's a hobby, just going to a rabbit hole and you just start looking into it.
Definitely.
And then Bhagavad Gita. So compare Bhagavad Gita to the Abrahamic religions.
So there's more of an understanding of this idea of Brahm Drishti, so seeing God in all. That was the first experience I had of that, of this idea of seeing God in everything, the greatness of God. You know, what happens when you actually get darshan of God, which all this stuff comes in the Gita as well.
Yeah.
Is that
And,
foreign to you, having grown up atheist and reading the Quran and the Bible?
That idea of God doesn't exist in kind of your English, Western, Abrahamic framework of what God is and what religion is. That idea of directly interacting with God, it doesn't exist at all, and it hadn't even occurred in my mind. And bearing in mind, I'd done religious education for however many years, but they don't teach you this stuff. They just teach you what the Maryada is or the history, which is great, but I think it doesn't let you introspect. It doesn't let you kind of
a deep dive. Because it's symbolism. They talk about all the symbols, the khanda.
It's very like surface level, which is fair enough.
And then anything else of the Bhagavad Gita that you find interesting, but also carrying on the story in terms of what faiths did you start looking at after that as well?
So after that, it was like, more Hindu texts, more Buddhist texts. And it was actually quite a while after that. But then eventually, if we skip forward a little bit, I started reading Guru Granth Sahib Ji, English translation, just on a PDF online, basically. And so I sat down one day, I was like, I want to learn more about Sikhi now.
And how did that come?
That came about because I had a lot of, on my YouTube, there was all sorts of Islam debates, speakers corners videos. And so eventually one of Bhai Jagraj Singh came up. And one of the ones, it was very recently before they passed away, of them debating Muhammad Hijab on Speaker's Corner. And I remember watching it, and it was the edited version that Muhammad Hijab had posted, and he tried to make himself look good, but he still didn't make himself look good.
Okay.
And I think watching that, I was more intrigued about who is this character, Bhai Jagraj Singh, and then what is the Sikhi that he's speaking of that I'd never really heard much about, apart from, like we talked about, the surface level of religious education lessons. So from that, watched a few basics videos, the original Jagraj Singh videos, and I was like, oh, this is quite a lot. Like some of them, I felt like I was going straight onto the Katha without knowing where to go, and I was almost getting a bit lost, like, oh, this is a bit complicated for me. And so I went back, I was like, let's read Guru Granth Sahib Ji, because I've done that for every other faith. I've read their, religious text or whatever. Obviously, Guru Sahib is not just a text, but that was my kind of understanding at the time. So I started reading Gurbani, Guru Granth Sahib Ji, literally from the start. So I'm reading Mool Mantar in English, like, what is going on here? Like, very like, almost, it's like it goes right from the start, isn't it? And so you're kind of like, it's a bit overwhelming. It's like telling me how there's a science of how, who is God, the nature of God straight away, and eventually into Japji Sahib. It took me quite a while to get through Japji Sahib, English translations. And then after that, I just kept on reading Guru Granth Sahib, basically the English side part.
How did that compare to the reading of other scriptures in English as well?
I'd say compared to reading something like the Bible or the Quran in English, it's very different because they're heavily translated. They're heavily kind of altered to make it, palatable for someone who just wants to pick up and read. Whereas, we can criticize Gurbani translations, which is fair enough. But what it definitely does do is it makes you curious. Like, what does this actually mean? And so you start looking towards things like Gatha videos, and that's when I started watching basics videos at the same time, basically.
That's a really good point you make, because that was going to be my next question in terms of, the English translations. Again, I think you could say that in terms of the work that we've done in English for our faith, compared to other faiths, there's probably not as much literature available. But maybe that's a bit of a blessing as well, right? Because it adds that level of curiosity.
I think what there is, there's not standardized. We don't have like, this is the standardized translation of Gurbani that people from outside should go to. There's multiple different perspectives, which I think is also good. But yeah, like I said, it kind of makes you curious. And then for someone like me, that helped me to go towards places like basics.
Yeah.
I've also thought the translations some of them are very quite aloof, and some of the English
they just don't make sense without context.
With that, exactly. So maybe that could be your project, Vishnu. Honestly, you're a very
That's a
well read
big one.
young man, and your Gurbani pronunciation part understanding is only growing and becoming phenomenal as well. So Guru Kirpa Rakhe, that could be your project to try and provide that to the wider community.
Maharaj Kirpa.
Gurudwara Rakhe.
And with Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, in terms of, again, not to use the word compare, but in that case, you've read different scriptures. Was that reading the Bible and other scriptures more like reading a story? And then Guru Granth Sahib Ji was like, because, you know, sometimes people assume that Guru Granth Sahib Ji is, you know, like a book with chapters, but that's very different to other faiths. Right? We don't look at Guru Sahib Ji as a book. I just want to understand your experience of like when you were reading Guru Granth Sahib Ji, how it differed. Like, oh, you walked in with this expectation of it's going to be like other spiritual texts, but it's completely different. I can't go to this chapter now that I started with last session and so on like that. How was that for you as well?
I got used to kind of doing a certain amount of angs every day.
Angs means what? Just for the Sangha that don't.
Pages, sort of limbs of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, but, you know, English, you know, pages, you know.
Hanji.
But yeah, so I got used to making a kind of standard amount that I'd read. I didn't know what a rag was. I didn't know what, you know, mahalla even meant at that point fully in terms of which Guru Sahib is writing. So I didn't fully understand what the structure was that I was reading through. But it doesn't massively matter because that's the thing about Gurbani is not built around a kind of religious scriptural structure. It's not a shastra in that typical sense in terms of it doesn't tell you here's how you learn about this. You can learn about what Amrit is here and learn about, you know, what Naam is here and learn about what Gyan is here. You have to read all of it and then you kind of eventually you get a collective understanding. And I think that's on purpose, isn't it? Guru Sahib's done that on purpose, and it makes you more introspective, and it changes the way that you read. When you're just reading, expecting everything to be handed to you, there's no kind of personal interaction there. You're just almost letting yourself get taught in a very non-personal way. But the way that Gurbani is written doesn't do that. The way that Gurbani is written makes you foster a kind of personal connection with Gurbani.
Wow, that's amazing. And so then what happens there? So you're watching YouTube videos. Did you move on to another scripture afterwards, or did you think, actually, no, I'm going to stay here and check out more?
I ended up reading other Sikhi books.
Yeah.
So obviously watching a lot of basics videos. I think now if I go on my YouTube account, every single old basics video, all the Bhagavad Gita ones, every single one of them is watched.
Right.
Because I just put them on in the background. And on the way to school, you know, I'd always be listening to basics. And kind of other things like Gyani Sukhraj Singh's Jabdi Sahib Gatha as well. Any English resource I could get my hands on, I was, you know, trying to kind of interact with that in terms of, you know, YouTube and things, you know, videos. And yeah.
How old are you at this point? So still in year 12?
This is all in year 12, yeah.
Wow. What
So
is 12?
this is all, you know, I took, spoiler alert, I took Amrit at the end of year 12. So, you know.
Stay tuned for
next. And so now, how are your peers reacting to this?
That's a good question. So
you're in school, you go to school, so how are they reacting?
Okay, I'll tell the story about the first time I went to school with a start on.
Yeah.
Because before that, it was all, you know, hidden. Right. But, you know, you start coming into Sikhi Sarup, and that's when people know what your faith is.
So you're reading. So at what point did you say, so let's track back then.
Yeah.
At what point did you say, Sikhi is it? So you've done the Bhagavad Gita, you've done the Quran, King James' Bible. At what point did you say, this is it, I'm home now?
I don't think I did. I don't think there was a specific moment where that clicked and happened.
Yeah.
So whilst I was kind of on this journey, once I arrived at studying Sikhi, I could tell that this was something I was more interested in than other faiths. A lot of that's down to Bhai Jagaraj Singh in terms of the work they were doing makes everything 100 times more relatable. And so that kind of gripped me. And then what it was I was starting to make little changes in my life that were kind of just not because I was trying to become a Sikh, as it were, but because I was just trying to follow what Gurbani had taught me up to that point. So little things like stopping to eat meat was the first thing. I remember my mum called me one day. I was literally just arriving home. She called me saying, do you want bacon sandwiches for dinner? I was like, nah, Mum, I'm going to go vegetarian now. She was like, okay, fair enough. Do you want cheese sandwiches for dinner? She said,
That's it.
That's it.
Such a
and then I
easy
had cheese
conversation.
sandwiches. But yeah, so it was just little things like that. And then probably a month after that, I stopped drinking. And yeah, it was all very quick. And then I remember one time, so this was like, let's say, stopping to eat meat, and then maybe a month gap, stopping drinking, and then maybe another month gap, I brought up a kiss. And I was like, by this point, it was a lot further on, and I was like, I don't really want to cut my hair again. And I said that to my parents, and they were a bit confused. Because at first, they knew I was studying Sikhi. They knew that, because I was always talking about Sikhi with them
Yeah.
at every opportunity. And
And
so,
what was
like,
their impressions of Sikhi prior? I mean, any interaction they've had with Sikh
so
people?
my mum used to do langar seva
Yeah.
in Nottingham, feeding the homeless
Oh, wow.
for a few years when she was younger.
Right.
So she's had a lot of interaction with Sikhi.
Oh, so she was actually doing longer to say with a 6.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
so in the Gurdwara she was
Wow.
making it, and then they would go out and feed
How
it.
did
They
that
still do that in
come
Nottingham
about?
now.
Did you just Sikh friends or?
Sikh friends, yeah,
Okay,
I think, from work and things like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so
She never ever felt any pressure. This is the beauty of Sikhi, right? You can interact, and there's no pressure to conform, but you
No,
can
yeah.
continue doing your service to
Yeah,
mankind.
I think my mum kind of understood that because she'd had that interaction with, however long she did.
Yeah.
Longer to say off, or no one tried to, tell her to take Amrit or anything
Yeah,
like
or
that.
confer, or
Or
start
try to,
weight.
yeah. And so she understood that there was no like,
Pressure.
there's no pressure there.
Yeah.
You just come and help out. And because of that, she understood that I wasn't, she didn't think I was getting radicalized or anything like that, I don't think. But yeah, so there was a positive understanding of Sikhi from my parents.
Nice.
But then, obviously, and I understand this, there was difficulty at first in terms of them understanding why I was coming into Sikhi.
Yeah.
Because there's one thing, not having a problem with Sikh or not having a problem with Sikhi in terms of its values, but then for her to accept her son then coming into Sikhi is a very different thing, or my dad, the same thing. It's a big change.
Yeah.
And I was 17 at that point. I wasn't even an adult technically.
Yeah.
And I'm just like obsessed with Sikhi suddenly.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think they're probably quite curious about it and a bit confused as well.
Hmm.
And it's important. Families are support. Again, this isn't, like you said, no one felt, there's no pressure or any way, but I can imagine it is a big impact for parents, and hopefully children that's not children, you're not a child. But hopefully they can see that it's only benefited them and the family and you, more importantly.
Yeah.
And we mentioned the Gyani Sugarasanji podcast, which you guys can check out as well. When it comes to having that conversation with your parents, whether you're from a Punjabi Sikh background or not, then that should still be a respectful conversation and keeping the respect with the parents, right?
Yeah.
And try and not, obviously there may be a disagreement, but you can have a loving disagreement and obviously not cuss your parents out or something like that as well. Before you mentioned the meat and you mentioned the alcohol, was you like a heavy drinker? Did you love your meat foods? Because I'm just saying this again, finding Sikhi, like a lot of people when I came into Sikhi, like especially giving up meat was really hard, not because of the taste, but because like protein or whatever people's reasonings are, right?
Yeah.
But how was that for you? Was it very simple? Was it because just you're that kitsch towards Sikhi? Like, was there like a bit of a fight going on in your head to like, I like these things, I like this type of food. How was that?
I think it was funny because I tried to go vegetarian once and it lasted about half an hour. And that was like completely just on my own volition, like when I was a lot younger.
Okay.
Like,
Why did it last half an hour? What happened in that half an hour?
What did your mum make? That
I had a lamb curry. Like, yeah, I can't remember, something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, nah, I love meat. And I did love meat. Like, it's always on your plate. Unless you're growing up in a vegetarian household, meat is always the center of the meal, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of like that. And so, yeah, I wasn't a heavy drinker, but I was, the school I went to was like parties every weekend, things like that. So I'd go and then you have a drink anyway because you're there. And it's pretty normal for kids in this country, isn't it? So that was just doing what everyone else is doing, isn't it? And I never enjoyed being drunk. So I wasn't a heavy drinker because I was literally just doing it in terms of, conforming socially, if you know what I mean. So giving up those two things wasn't too hard. because I think I had a backing with me. I think Guru Sahib's always guiding you, isn't it? And if you don't know it at the time, you'll find out later. And so I might have struggled at one point to stop being me, but if Guru Sahib guiding you the second time, it's going to be easy. And yeah.
Fantastic.
And then, rocking up at school then. So I know we kind of going back to that. So you rocked
back
up.
to that story.
Yeah.
So I used to wear a dastard in the house, and then I would take it off to leave the house.
Okay. And how long was your hair at this point?
Sure. Like, this is like, you got to realize, like, my last haircut was probably a few weeks before I started tying it. So there was no hair.
So there's no jewelry or anything.
Even when I went to my Amrit Sanchar, I hardly had any hair.
Yeah.
Like, if I took my dastard off, you wouldn't think I was keeping my gears at that point.
Okay.
Where'd you get the material from?
Yeah.
How did you learn to tie it?
So someone at the Gurdwara had gifted it to me.
Okay.
The first kapda I got, and then everyone after that, I just bought it myself.
So you'd been visiting the Gurdwara before this then? Or when did that, if you don't want, I know we're kind of going back and
Yeah,
forth.
you take it a bit more chronological.
Which is fine, it's nice because it's nice to go back and forth. So tell us about that quickly so then we'll come back to the school. How did you start going to the Gurdwara?
So a friend of mine from school basically offered. It was like, I know you're curious about Sikhi and whatnot. I think I had a kara on at this point already.
Yeah.
Even maybe. No, actually. I think I bought one the first time I ever went to the Gurdwara. So I went, it was on a random Wednesday afternoon. I didn't have any classes on that afternoon, so we were able to leave. And so we went on the bus to the Gurdwara. I was so nervous. I was like, what is everyone going to think of me? But, it's the middle of the day, so no one was there. Just went, did a matha tek, and then I went to had prashad and went to Langar Full. Full tour, full experience. And for me, it felt pretty normal at the time. Now I look back, I think it was quite pivotal. In terms of, I said this in a talk I did a few months ago, is that when you come to Guru Granth Sahib Ji's charan, they're going to change your karam. When you put your head on the ground, that's going to change your karam. I think that's what happened, isn't it?
Without realizing.
It's crazy because in sixth form, when you have your free periods, I was playing Bubby, I was playing and stuff, right? You're rocking up to the Gurdwara to a darshan of Guru Granth Sahib for the first time. That's crazy. And you bought the kara that day, or?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure. Something like that.
Okay. And then take us back to going to school with... So then you got the start from the Gurdwara then?
Same visit or like a different visit or...
This was a separate occasion that I basically had met the person and they'd given it to me. Long story short.
Okay.
And then I started tying it literally the day he gave it to me. Started practicing.
YouTube videos,
Yeah. It was proper raga at first, and I was thinking in my head like, I don't know if I can do this. I've not got any hair. Like, do I need hair to do this? So I just like kind of gave it a go. Like, it was a few hours of practice every day to get like a clean gold to start tied. Like very short, very short.
You have a picture?
Oh yeah, I do.
Cool, we'll get that.
That's not for the public though.
Hopefully we can get it on screen.
And
then you rocked up to school with it. And how did that go?
That was funny. So it was literally because I was late for school that day.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even have time to take my start off. I just had to go to school.
Yeah.
And so I had walked to school that day, I think, or biked. And there was a crossing on the way to school. There's a crossing.
Yeah.
And where the buses go past. And a few people from my year, not like good friends or anything, but people I knew, I was stood on the other side, and the bus went past. And when the bus moved, they saw me on the side, and they started laughing. And I was like, "Oh gosh, this is not going to go well." And I was already anxious. Like, I knew it was going to be a bit weird for everybody, but I was like, "Let's just firm it for one day," Didn't do much explanation for it. I didn't tell anyone this is what I'm doing until they asked. And then what happened is, I think on the exact same day, or maybe the day after, wearing a dastar at school, I had to go to the office of the head of sixth form. He thought I was being racist or something. He thought I was like dressing up. And so I had to explain it to him, like, no, this is like, I'm making a change, I'm trying to convert or change my faith, you know what I mean? And so
you're not mocking the faith.
yeah.
Is that the reputation you had in school then?
No, hopefully not.
And what was your first ever positive experience of coming into Sikhi, wearing at the start? Did anybody say anything nice to you?
Yeah, so I'd already had, because I started going Qada, I think some people had clocked. And so I had people come up to me already, like before I'd even said anything to anybody, saying, oh, I heard you're changing your religion, and things like that, in a nice way, respectfully. And I think it was more respectful then. When I started tying at the start, people get nervous to ask questions. Innit?
Yeah, that's true.
And so then they were like, oh, this guy's like pretty serious. Let's leave him alone.
What did even the Durag Singh say? Sorry.
Yeah, even the Singhs are like
He was happy, and he was really happy to
Oh,
see it.
sick.
Oh, nice.
And earlier he used the word clocked. Just for those that don't know what
No,
clocked
he
means.
just like realised it.
Realize, right? Just because our Sangat base is very wide,
Yeah.
and everybody using amazing Punjabi words, but using also these cool slang words as well, right? So clocked means they found out, or they realized in that moment. As
What were the other Sikhs like in your year group or in your school? Sorry,
Well, there wasn't many.
not many.
Not that I interacted with them, and even when I started tying at the start, most of them like didn't even say anything or really ask.
It's fascinating. That's fascinating.
There was no Amritaris or anything like that.
Yeah, but Uddai, I think, because we as a community are quite proud of like this thing of this Singh nod. I don't know if you've seen or heard of it. Like you see a Singh on a train station, you give him a little nod.
Yeah.
You see people in random places around the world, you give them a little nod.
Unless you're in South, you don't give no one a nod.
Yeah, not in South. South, where you close your eyes and walk. But yeah, so I just thought maybe, but they're young, they're only 67.
I think it was probably they're a bit confused,
Yeah.
and also like at this point I looked like a white guy with the star on. I think now I look a bit more like a Sikh, but then I just looked like I was proper Nava, like didn't know what was happening.
Probably no facial hair as well, right?
No, not like I had a little beard because my facial hair grew quite quick back in the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I used to be in the air cadets,
Yeah.
and you have to be clean shaven.
Yeah.
And so I was shaving like every other day. I was shaving my beard off, and so it means that it grows back quicker. And so even after a few days, it started growing. So-
And what about your parents and your cousins and relatives? How do they react to seeing this transformation?
everyone had a different reaction. My parents were very like bit concerned, which is valid.
Yeah.
A bit like what's happening here, a bit overwhelmed by the whole thing. Our son looks completely different, things like that. And then a lot of my family were, some of them may be concerned, but a lot of them were just very curious about him, happy for me. It's funny because of how quick it was. It was like some family that I hadn't seen since I was still, a normal looking white guy. I rock up with the malla on as an Amritari with a kurban and everything. And then they're like, oh, what's happened here? I hadn't seen them in the time. So, I think it was things like that where it's very rapid for them. And, they don't say anything bad to my face. I don't know what they say behind my back. But, I think they're all very, at least now happy for me because they've seen the progression.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And then next, what's happening after this? You tied the star. You're still in year 12, I'm guessing still?
Yeah, this is towards
Year 12 was the year,
April,
bro.
May time.
Yeah, year 12 is a pretty big year.
Yeah.
I think it's for me as well. I remember 1st of September, year 12, I stopped being me and rocked up to school with the starter. So I think I see that. Year 12 has got some power in it.
That's the same story with me as well.
Is it?
actually,
Yeah,
year
yeah.
12.
I think your brain starts working differently because you got all this revision to do and everything.
Yeah. But you don't feel like a kid anymore because
Yeah.
you're doing subjects that you've chosen. You're not forced to be sitting through lessons,
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe there's kind of an adulthood kind of thing kicking in there.
Yeah. So I think it was basically straight from there, a few kind of months of that, a few weeks even of that, and eventually I took Umrah. And it was just a case of, eventually I got to the point where I was like, so throughout this entire time, I was building up my nityanim, if you know what I mean, in terms of starting with listening to Jabdi Sahib in the morning, like literally just, I think it was the Manpreet Singh Kanpuri recording I used to listen to of Jabdi Sahib on Spotify. Every morning I'd get up, like 8 a.m. I'd listen to it. I'd just sit there, I'd try my best to focus, close eyed, everything, proper trying. Same with Reras. Used to listen to Reras every day. And then Soila Sahib as well. So that was my nityanim for quite a while, until probably 2 weeks before I took Amrit. And then I was like, okay, I need to start trying to put a bit more effort in. And so 2 things I did was, the first thing I started reading Panjbani every day with the Romanization.
Okay.
It's not recommended.
Yeah.
But I think because the progression was so quick, can I learn an entire script overnight? No. So you kind of, sometimes
do-
you use
yeah.
things like that. It's a
Yeah, of
crutch,
course.
isn't it? It's a crutch for kind of reading Gurbani. And then eventually, what I started doing was trying to memorize. I gave myself a crazy goal. I memorized one paudi of Japji Sahib every day. And then I would listen to the Bhai Jagrai Singh Katha for those paudi that I'd memorized afterwards as well. And so every day I tried to memorize one paudi. And to be fair, for shorter paudi, I would actually manage to do it. And that was from like, you know, proper like reciting as much as I could. With probably awful ucharan at this point. Like awful pronunciation. Because I didn't really know. And I had no santya at this point. So I was just like winging it basically. So it's probably awful if I heard it back now. But, you know, at the time I felt like I was properly like making progress.
There's innocence and love there. That's all it is. There's nothing but innocence and love.
And to me, at that point, I was like, if I could memorize Japji Sahib, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
That would be so cool. And eventually I did. And it took probably maybe 3 months after. So it wasn't a paudi a day, but it was as much as I could get done.
Yeah.
3 months after I had Japji Sahib memorized, you know, without santya. But yeah.
And just for Santya, for clarifying, is learning the correct pronunciation of Gurbani, which is something we all should all do on our journey without a doubt. But, you know, the love and the innocence is a beautiful thing there as well, without a doubt.
Yeah, and so then by that point, I was reading Panchbaniya, had tried my best to memorize Japji Sahib. And that's essentially when I decided I'm going to go to an Amrit Sanchar now. The first one I see. So I went to an Amrit Sanchar in Walsall. Literally the first.
On your own?
On my own, yeah, my dad took me.
Oh, wow. So at this point, you haven't actually made any sangat?
No,
Friends?
No sangat really. I'd talk to people in Nottingham,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't much. It wasn't like a support network.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So this
It was just kind of people I'd bumped into. And then went to my Amrit Sanchar. Craziest day of my life. Probably will be the craziest day of my life for the rest of my life. Yeah, I took Amrit. And like I said, I still looked pretty fresh at that point.
Yeah.
It's funny, there's a picture of everyone from my Amrit Sanchar, and I'm just like on the side, looking proper pasty. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can still kind of tell I've got short hair as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's funny.
Do you mind speaking a little bit about your Amrit Sanchar in terms of, you know, how did you even find out about the Amrit Sanchar? Was it through social media?
It's from a poster.
Yeah. And when you went there, you know, was it daunting? What the Panch Pyare, did they question you? You know, so are you sure? Because again, we have to appreciate you're not from a Punjabi Sikh background, so there probably be more questions. And you, like I said, especially your hair is so short, right? So, you know, if you don't want to, you don't have to, but, you know, might be nice to
Yeah,
share
I
some
think,
of that.
yeah, the Panch Pyare questioned me, which is obviously the right thing to do. Like some guys rocking up looking like, you know, they're doing dress up and then they're trying to take Amrit. I remember I went to my Amrit Sanchar and I was wearing, I came proper smart.
Yeah.
I came in like a button shirt, nice jeans.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, you know, you gotta look nice for your Amrit Sanchar.
That's so sweet.
And,
So innocent, 100.
And I knew obviously you have to take your trousers off, pajama off.
Yeah.
So I was just like, yeah, I'll just take my jeans off and pop them on the side. But what happened is, so at my Amrit Sanchar, Baba Jogendra Singh Ji was there from Buddha. And so I had been beckoned by one of the Singhs to come and speak to Babaji before my Sanchar as well as speaking to the Panch Pyare. And so Babaji said to me, asked me all sorts of questions. How long's your hair? You know, like all sorts of things. He gave me advice. Had someone translate. And so he gave me one of his bani.
Oh, wow.
So he literally said, do you have a bana? I was like, no. And he pointed to his wardrobe and was like, okay, get a bana for this Singh. And then I literally changed it to a bana. And I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Do you mind telling us what the advice was that you were given?
He said to me, disco nahi jana. I didn't know what it meant at the time, but don't go to the club, don't go to the disco.
Disco.
It was funny, man. But at the time, I was just like, yeah, this person's so blessed.
Yeah.
And I was like almost overwhelmed by it, I think. I was very nervous. But like I say, the craziest day of my life.
And then Amrit Sanchar, again, we have a whole podcast on it. I've done a few plugs now, so you can check that out as well. How was that experience like being in the Amrit Sanchar? You know, just if you don't mind, just what kind of comes to your mind in terms of actually being blessed with Amrit, you know, when they shakar you Amrit and so on and so on. If you don't mind.
When I was there, and this isn't just a cliche, I felt like I was transported back to 1699, the first Amrit Sanchar. That's what it felt like. and something very surreal about it. I felt like I was transported. And when I was in there, it was the first time I'd sat for that long in my entire life, or even stood for that long. And like, I didn't have the stamina for it back then. So I think I was very tired by the end of it. Like I said, it was just so overwhelming. But luckily the Rahat was in English there. And so I wasn't like confused or anything like that. Like I didn't have someone have to come up to me separately and tell me what was going on basically. And luckily I'd done my kind of research. Like I wasn't an idiot. I wasn't going in like completely blind. Like I knew what was required of me, everything like that. But I just looked really new to the game.
But
and
some people do go in blind, and some people do go in, they completely, I'm just changing my life. I thought at Sings camp in Europe, there's a few people that just literally kept their hair the night before and just went in there completely like, you know what, I'm just going to go. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to take control of my life. I'm going to take the Guru's blessings. So yeah, that's, you see both sides of the spectrum, I guess.
I think it still was a very it was a wing it thing. But, it was thought out. I wasn't like, just doing it for the sake of it or anything,
Of course.
I knew that's what I wanted to do, at least at some point. And I went there and I kind of had this awareness that maybe the Panj Pyare might say come back later or something like that. And so I was ready for that as well.
Yep.
I was so lucky that actually first time I was able to take Amrit.
And any questions on it specifically?
No. And then just more what happens post, and you obviously rocked up to school with a Qurban on now. How is that going?
So I remember the day I took Amrit, Sunday the 25th of June, 2023. And the day after was my first mock exam for my A-levels. And I'd revised, but I was, my head was somewhere else, you know what I mean? And so I rocked up. And before that, I was tying at the start.
Yep.
I was tying at the Malla by that point, actually. But I think the day after my Sanchar, I was like, let's tie a massive Damalla.
Yeah.
So I tied this huge Damalla. And I went to school, went to my exam. It was like the worst day to do that.
Yeah.
I was so anxious about my exam and judgment from other people.
Yeah, of course.
And luckily, I think I did all right in that exam. But I think kind of following on from that start, I was wearing a Qurban and things like that. I was very conscious that no one else is wearing a Qurban at school. The teachers might not even know what a Qurban is.
Yeah.
And so I had to be careful.
Yeah.
And so I concealed my Qurban as much as I could. And the first day that it got brought up was on one of the last days of school. It was really hot. And so I had my Qurban kind of out over my t-shirt. And basically a teacher comes up to me like looking distressed, like I'm, trying to, do something awful or something. Yeah. And I had to explain to her patiently, like, no, I'm allowed to carry this Qurban, this and this, Tried to quote the law as much as I could, explain it to her. She was still a bit reluctant to understand what I was saying. And because it was literally, I think it was the last day of school. And so after she brought it up, I went home until, year 13. So it didn't get brought up until we got back. And then when we got back, I had to work with the head of sixth form. So the same person who'd kind of questioned me about my dastar. I had to work with them to create a Qurban policy for the school and for the academy. It was part of an academy trust. And so I had to explain every little detail. You go through the whole, can you carry an alternative? Is it symbolic? Can it be blunt? And you have to be hard-lined on these things to a certain extent. You can't let these things get eroded. Because if we all collectively go, oh yeah, Qurban can be useless, then we're kind of eroding Sikhi, at least in the West.
Just to touch upon this briefly, of course, right now when we're recording this podcast, there are certain situations taking place in the UK when it comes to Qurban. And a lot of the conversations have been around what can we be doing to safeguard the Sikh community, the Sikh youth, or just Sikhs in general that do wear the Qurban, especially in public places. Again, VG, yourself being a teacher as well, being in schools, what would be the advice generally, we'd say to Sangat that are going out into public is probably ideal that we do, try to avoid bringing too much attention to the Qurban, keep the Qurban on the bottom. If you're going to school, generally, again, if you can keep it out of sight, then it's best to do. There's positive examples of where, if the Qurban has to be on show, then you can build things like policies into schools, and that's that amazing prachar to be done. But I guess there's a bit of a balance of the both, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important we do, and we talk from this platform or this perspective, is we are mature about the society we live in and in the climate we live in as well. Things like knife crime are strife in central London, for example. So we have to be. I look back and think, look, Sikhs have been in England for over 100 years. We've successfully integrated. We've got businesses. We're practicing our faith in a very free manner. That's because people before us have taken really good decisions, and they've worked in a way which allows us to practice that very freely. We, as a next generation of Sikhs, shouldn't ruin this now. We shouldn't be the ones putting up barriers. We sometimes knock people, say the people who came before us, they were uneducated or doing low-income jobs. Now we on the opposite end on high-income jobs, and we destroy it for the rest of the community. That's just stupidity there. So it's about being sensible. The kirpan is not a toy. It's not fancy dress. And I said this a lot recently, even in my own classes, that Sikhi is not a fancy dress. Wearing as many kirbans as you want. Sikhi is not, a kirpan is not a toy. It's not to cut your bloody apple or something. It's to do bhog with. It's for rakhya. It's for, really, your Sikhi, and your Sikhi doesn't always need to be out on show. What I mean by that is your kirpan doesn't need to be out on show to prove you're a Singh. What should be proven you're a Singh is the way you act and conduct yourself, because that's more likely to be seen and judged before anyone even sees your kirpan. So we prove ourselves by our actions, not just by the way we look in terms of our kirbans and the stars. And that's all important without a doubt. But our actions should be reflective of Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Maryada, the way they told us to live.
Yeah, because it's easy for us to say, the actions of one person doesn't represent all of us.
But it very clearly does.
Clearly, other people are going to interpret it like that.
That's it.
The other thing is, there's a lot of propaganda out there, isn't it? So if an issue like this comes up, it's going to be made about the kirpan. It's going to be made about Sikhi. Even if it isn't, even if it's just an issue of violence with one individual, it's going to be altered. You had Rupert Lowe, literally on the same day as the verdict recently, make a post saying, if we have a Restore Britain government, then we'll ban the kirpan. And what that's doing is they're garnering an angry voter base, isn't it? And so we have to, fight against that in a way. We have to, make our own kind of information. And we have to kind of spread the truth as much as we can.
And the reality is, we would feel the impact as Amritaris on a day-to-day basis. So one bad decision, one bad move by one young lad, one irresponsible move, is that impact is felt by you in your schools and university campuses, me in my workplaces. So again, all I would be emphasizing here is, I don't know when this will go out, but every single Sikh needs to take responsibility for their faith. If you're Amritari, you take responsibility on how you represent Amritaris, on not just on a national, but on a global level, the way we conduct ourselves, the way we practice our faith. And remember, the consequences are far-reaching. They are not just you and your family. It is every single Sikh is impacted, and we have to go with that mature, responsible mindset.
The Khalsa should have standards, isn't it? And it's not necessarily that having open Amrit and charges is a problem, but we have to be careful about who, is able to join the Khalsa. We have to be careful about who is representing the Khalsa on the kind of global and national level. There should be a high standard. I see it in the West. That it's getting eroded.
I think at the moment we just become prachar, and maybe this is a fault of prachariks like myself and everyone else that does that. Maybe we just made it too easy to become a Sikh. It's too easy to buy Shastra. It's too easy to tie Damalle when your conduct is absolutely diabolical, but you've got a beautiful blue Damal on your head. So do you deserve to wear that Damal? Do you deserve to represent the King of Kings, Guru Kalgidhar Sahib?
I know we're going on a whole tangent, but it's a very important topic. Just one point to add to it as well is that I was speaking to a Singh about this recently, and he was saying that when he used to be at Sikhi camps as a kid, like the kids that be wearing a kirpan, they'll question straight away, are you Amritari? Again, not to go nitty gritty, of course, sometimes you like to say, practice your kagad before you take Amrit. But, it was the main point was that there was a lot of responsibility that came with it, like you guys said. And, especially like in things like the dal and so on, where if you want to take Amrit, you'd have to be doing seva for so many years, right? So there's positives you take from everywhere. And the main point here is that, again, what is your jivan? Right? And it's beautiful how you started your journey, that a lot of it was based around something very refreshing to hear, to do your praise, but in that case, it's praise of Guru Sahib Ji, is that one of the first things you want to achieve was, I want to get Japji Sahib memorized. And I don't know about you, but in today's society, it's very hard to come across Sikh that already been Sikh for a long time, and even new Sikhs that actually care about getting Gurbani memorized. It's more about, and I say this respectfully, like, wearing the massive Damala, massive Shastar, but Maaf Kodaji, a lot of them, can't read Gurbani or have Gurbani memorized. That's still beautiful. I have to add a disclaimer, but as in Bani Bana, innit?
I think you're being too polite, and I'll go the opposite, mate. Now we do Seva in our local area, and I've said to the kids recently is, if you are not doing Panjabani and Nitanim in the morning, you shouldn't be wearing Qurban.
Yeah.
Because and secondly, really pushing that maturity angle is crucial because, and I say this again, I say with the utmost respect, Sikhi is not fancy dress. We have kids who just come off like a I'm not just talking about like one particular group. Chole paake, gold stara paake, santan di rees karne, I'm just generically speaking here. Sikhi is not fancy dress. So we have to now, because we're in this place, I think, as a community where the resources for Sikhi are a lot more. It's a lot more open to people becoming Sikh, but it also means that the caliber of people coming through are very much temporary, short term. Let's just wear the star and see where it goes for a few days. And my mate's wearing a damalla, so let me wear damalla and let me do this. And it's not actually a real desire to have any connection with the Guru Sahib, with the Gurbani, with the Bana, to represent the Bana, to represent the community, man. When we were growing up, it was like, you know what, Singh? Become a Singh and take the Guru's name to the highest levels or whatever your field is. Like, take the Guru's the start to those fields. Like, now it's about we're just rolling the Guru's the start on the floor because of our silly actions. So, yeah, we do digress. So apologies.
Right. What are your thoughts on that? If you do, I know you're new to Sikhi, but from coming in and your journey to Sikhi, again, we're not passing judgment, but it'd be nice to hear your thoughts.
I think it's because the Sikhi Sarup appeals to people's ego, isn't it? And there's a reason for that. It's there on purpose. Is that someone with an ego can go, I want to look like Guru Gobind Singh Ji. That's their ego. That's them appealing to their ego and going, I think Guru Gobind Singh Ji looked great. I want to be that as well. That might be the first step for some people. But if it stops there, then that's almost on its own, it's kind of useless. Especially because then it becomes hypocrisy. And you're going around and you're not connected to Guru Sahib. You're not joined yourself with Guru Sahib. In my opinion, this might be controversial, I don't think you can be born a Sikh. Because everyone has to do taran of their Guru, so join with their Guru on their own accord, basically. It's a personal thing, isn't it? And so we have a lot of people now who but a child of this isn't done, and they see the Sarup and they think, oh, well, I'm just going to get the shortcut into Sikhi. And now, I'm on this same level with all these great people because I look like them. You can't be on that level without putting in a lot of effort.
So take us back to school.
School, yeah.
Thank you for this. And so what's happened now? You got the policies changed now.
Yeah.
You're wearing a kirpan. You got the kakad on. How does that feel? I remember the first day I wore a kirpan. It was like it's a lot of responsibility, right? How are you settling into the Amritari life, the waking up in the morning? It feels like there's a bit more pressure now, it's a bit more formal, because obviously now you've given your head to the Guru. Did it feel the same the next day? Did it feel a bit different? Or,
I think when you've just taken Amrit, there's a high, isn't it, that you get afterwards.
Yeah.
And that adrenaline carries you to do everything for the first maybe week, or maybe not even a week, few days. And so for me, I was like, I don't want to start messing up after a bit, because I felt a lot of pressure on my back. I've changed the way I look. I've changed, for people. I know they see that I changed the things I believe almost in a way. Everything about me has changed. But what if, even though everything about me has changed, nothing actually changes? And I just, end up living the exact same life before, but in kind of fancy dress like we talked about. And so I felt a lot of pressure on myself to do the right thing, to start waking up and things like that. And so I'd say I got into a decent routine of getting up every day, and that probably carried on at a very moderate level, maybe 5, half 5. I'd miss it. I'll be honest with you, I miss it. It
happens.
Happens.
And luckily, I'd say people say after 40 days you can kind of keep a habit. If you do it for 40 days, you can keep a habit. And so at some point I did 40 days, and then you get consistent with just the idea of Amrit Billah. The whole process takes a lot of practice to be able to do that consistently, and then eventually you start wanting to kind of build up from there as well. It's all about caring about what it's all about caring about it. If you're not interested in reading Gurbani, then you need to somehow get yourself interested in doing that, or you're not going to want to get up, and you're not going to be able to get up. There'll be no motivation for you to do it.
I think you said something really profound, which I'm still like 3 minutes behind, and stuck on one line you said, which was, if you haven't, everything about me has changed, but I haven't changed. And I'm just stuck on that. It's such a beautiful, profound statement.
It's true though. You know, for my family, that's one thing I'm lucky with, is that they were like, well, it doesn't matter what you look like, it matters what's actually inside. And because they said that to me so often whilst I was on this journey, I realized it's so true. If I don't change, it's not just about even nittanayam and your head. It's other things as well, like being a more compassionate person, you know, being more patient, being more respectful, little things like that.
And your parents, siblings should be, and cousins and the cat and everyone else should be able to see that you are better for it, right? Like,
I don't know if the cat does.
Your parents are cool. We have to get them a podcast as well.
But can you see, like, that's profound. That is, I will be quoting that from stages around honestly, that is so profound.
And then what happens next then? Again, I'm guessing right now you're still reading Romanized, Bart. So what's the next steps? How did you get yourself into Sangat? Are you still doing your exams? What's happening?
So there was a kind of, not a break from Sikhi, but a break where I wasn't so like reading everything all the time. I started to I need to focus on my A-levels a little bit. And so that's what I kind of mainly did.
What did you do for A-levels?
I did politics, biology, and psychology.
Nice.
That's interesting.
No, it's a weird combo.
Yeah,
I regret it.
Yeah.
I regret biology mainly.
Biology is hard.
Yeah.
I find that hard. Especially
politics is fascinating. I did politics.
It's quite an easy A-level because everyone in my class loved politics. And so we were just like,
debating and just...
It's very natural. Yeah, it was like that.
Where'd you get your A-levels? Don't mind telling us.
She put this smart.
Keep that good. I go into University of Leicester.
There you go. That's the main thing. You've got into university. Good part. So yeah, carry on. I'm interested to learn how you started to learn to read Gurumukhi.
Yeah.
Being honest with you, but if there's other key things that we've missed out, then please share those beforehand.
Yeah.
But take us to how you started to take us on the journey from being blessed with Amrit, doing your A-levels, and then learning how to read Gurbani.
So it didn't start with Samthya for me. It started with just self-teaching for a little bit. And what I did is I wrote every akkad 100 times. So I'd go through, I'd look at the akkad, I'd try my best to learn how to pronounce the akkad. I would use basics of Sikhi videos. I would use just my understanding of romanization versus when I'm listening to Gurbani, what it sounds like, things like that. Because by this point, I've listened to hours of Gurbani already. So I was familiar with how, what Ucharan sounds like, what correct Ucharan sounds like. I just hadn't done it myself yet, basically. And so I think all of that helped. And then, to memorize akkad and which akkad was which, that's what I did. I wrote every akkad 100 times.
Wow.
And at this point, you still don't have like a support group or community around you?
The amount of sangat I have is very little. Yeah, very little. It was until I went to university, to be honest.
You found young people your kind of age?
Yeah.
Where did you get this idea of writing the akkad 100 times to learn it? Because that's like a old practice.
Yeah,
you see that as well.
I don't know. I just did it. To be honest, it just felt like so I'd attempted to learn Arabic at one point, and that was kind of advice I'd been given, trying to do that, and I never actually learned Arabic properly, but I tried, and so I kind of knew techniques of how to learn a new script a little bit. But with Gurumukhi I went the whole way, if you know what I mean. And so once I actually knew my akkad, I started listening to Muharani recordings, trying to figure out Muharani as well. So that's all of the akkad with all the lagamatr in order. And so that goes through every possible sound combination you can get in Gurumukhi.
Phonics, essentially.
Yeah, phonics, yeah. And so I was doing that, I tried my best, and you can't do it all on your own. That's why Samthya exists. That's why the system of having a kind of teacher exists. And so that's eventually what I started doing, Samthya online.
Then you went to university, I take it?
Yeah, so this was kind of in the holidays I started doing Samthya online. I tried my best. I did, at first I was doing weekly, quite quickly it became twice a week. And then for quite a while I was doing pretty much every day or 5-6 days a week.
And it's all online at this point?
Yeah, at this point it was all online.
Okay.
Where are you?
Yeah. Who was your teacher who had the online?
It was someone from Australia.
Okay,
Same from Australia. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you live in Leicester with all this Santhia and
Well, this was before I'd started before I
Yeah.
came to uni.
How did
with
you find this Santhia?
In Australia, so I'm like,
Oh, just online, just through Instagram and things.
Wow,
Oh, wow.
fantastic. If you don't mind, I'd love to just go on this Santhia journey, because I know we're all quite passionate
yeah.
about how long you've been teaching Santhia and doing Santhia for. Probably longer than Vision Singh's been born, probably, isn't it?
Yeah, approximately. Yeah.
Like 20 years.
So 21, 22 years I've started Santhia. My first time I sang class, I was, I think, about 15, yeah. I'm 35.
Because I feel that this is so important for the next generation, especially because I think what your journey finding Sikhi shows that this is possible for anyone.
Yeah.
Because again, respectfully speaking, you didn't know any Punjabi. You probably only spoke English,
Yeah.
right? So, and people, and especially because you even then start to learn Romanize, which in some cases is not the greatest idea if you look at the angle of you got to now unlearn your bad habits.
Yeah.
The fact that you've been able to, in the last few years with Guru's Kirpa, only speaking English, and Gurumukhi has 35 to 40 plus different sounds you got to make, right? Letters, akkad, and a lot of them you won't find in the English alphabet.
Equivalent word or anything, yeah.
Like, let's just talk about that, because I feel that this will show people that you can learn Punjabi Gurumukhi. It's not that hard. You just got to put in the effort and stuff. So
You're right. It's not that hard. It takes. You have to put in your effort. You have to be consistent with it as well. But Gurumukhi is designed to be for the average person in the way it is simplified compared to something like Arabic. 35 akkar, so 35 akkar isn't that much, to be honest. Compared to things like Arabic, I think there's 76 in Arabic.
Or even Chinese,
like
the Mandarin, you know, Japanese, all these are like scripts that are tough. So Gurumukhi was made because to be accessible.
Yeah, exactly.
To be passed down, to be taught, to be learnt.
Yeah.
So what did you find then when you started learning from a teacher? Did you realize that a lot of your akkad were wrong? Because when you were self-taught, I was self-taught initially as well, and I was like, I could do part. As well. The reason why I went Santhia, not to make this about finding Sikhi about me, is because I started
Finding
Sukhdev Singh. I was sitting in the car doing Rehda Sahib with Bhagavad Gita. He was in the front seat, and I was doing Rehda Sahib, and I thought they were all going to join in. But no, when I started with the Hara Jugga Jugga, I was like, it's just me, basically, right? But when I finished Rehda Sahib, and I said, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh, I could see Bhagavad Gita in the front seat, just like, Singh, you should go Sanskrit. And I was like, just burst my bubble straight away.
But you don't realize until you go to Santhia, you won't realize your mistakes. It's impossible to pick it up yourself.
100%. So what were the biggest challenges for you? Again, English, because a lot of people in today's even Punjabi Sikh can't speak Punjabi. Even if they can speak Punjabi, it's very broken. Using words like tanka, letters like tanka and stuff. There's different types of T's and D's that come. It's really hard. Just tell us a little bit like that, so people can understand, they can relate and build a bit of strength to actually go on that journey as well. What were your most difficult things to kind of break and so on?
No, well, the main thing is your ego. So you think you're doing everything right, and then you get told you're doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
The most important part of Santhia is letting go of your ego a little bit, being really patient about everything, and then just putting the effort. So like you said, like the Gurumukhi Akkara, they're not in English, There's nothing like most of them in English. And like little things like, like English K. There's 2 different types of Ks in Gurumukhi. There's so many different examples of that in Gurumukhi. And so you just have to stop thinking of it like you're speaking. You have to start thinking about like you're making the sound. And you have to work step by step. Learn your akkad, learn your Mohadani, and then you start making words, Balabadesh. And so you have to go really slowly to be able to do that properly.
I think the first step is, you're right, letting go of your ego. So many people I know cannot let go of their ego to come to a class because they don't want to be sitting going oora, era, edi, and they want to be
sitting with kids and things like that.
And we even do adult classes, to be fair. It's because they don't want to be starting from the beginning. They want to start straight away on Gurbani, which is a beautiful and noble intention, but life doesn't work.
It's pretty much impossible to do that.
You're going to be. It's the progress is so limited.
It's so much to kind of process in terms of learning a new lipi, learning a new script. And then working towards, like I said, going from Mohadani, Balabadesh, and then eventually going on to Gurbani, and that's when it gets exciting. One thing with Santhia is a lot of people get stuck on Balabadesh. So Balabadesh is learning how to pronounce certain words, numbers, things like that. And that feels like the longest part of your Santhya.
It is. It's the toughest. It is tough.
It's so, if you feel, I don't want to say it's boring, but like it's so hard to stick to Santhya at that point.
Yeah.
So if I had one piece of advice for people at home, just get Balapadesh done. After that, you're flying.
My style made us do another bhoti after as well.
Yeah.
Dharam bhoti.
Oh, you did Dharam
Yeah, do all the Dharam bhoti. Well, at least the first time. And they're like, Baba Ji, energy, please, can we just start? I'm going to stop coming, mate. No, and he got, no, I'm not going to.
Well, that's the problem. People do stop coming.
Yeah. We so I have a little rule in our Sunday class. If you don't come more than 3 times, I'm not taking you serious.
Yeah.
Like and anyone, that could be, just if you come 3-4 times, then you think, okay, that person wants to learn. It's hard. I appreciate how hard it is, and we try to really be nice, kind, and loving and supportive.
Yeah.
But until the person doesn't kill their own ego a little bit, humble themselves, you can't take anything in life. You can, even if you want to become an electrician, right? If you don't humble yourself and go to someone and shadow someone for free, for example, it's going to be hard to break through and become a successful electrician, and other examples.
Practice is like the key.
Yeah. And so how far is your Santhya now then?
So I started Mara Santhya recently.
So if I can just kind of give a context, so that's,
Yeah.
you've learned your alphabet, so Ura, Era, Moharni, which is the vowels and alphabet joining together, so like Ere, Ganna, A, so Era being the letter and Ganna being the vowel, so phonics, Balapadesh, Nityanim Santhya.
So then, I did Nityanim,
Yeah.
Padchhed, so with the words broken up.
Yeah,
And then I did Sundaragurka after that,
okay.
in Padchhed as
Padchhed as
well.
well.
And then I moved on to Panjgranthi, and I did that Ladivar.
Yes, Panjganti Larivar, Baivara,
Yeah.
because you're in the sheet, you won't go with that with long. Then the problem, Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
Now you started. You said Mara Santhya.
I've just started Guru Granth Sahib Ji.
And that's over 2 years?
That's over, 2 years.
That is
Like, almost exactly 2 years.
slow ਵਾਲਿਓ ਸੁਣ ਲਓ ਇਦਾਂ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ I'm saying to my own students, this is how you do mihnat, right?
And
this is how you do practice.
that's Ladivar as well, right? Where the words are connected,
Yeah, Ladivar, yeah.
which is harder for the average person generally.
That's how Santhya is intended, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the reason Santhya is so important again, is like you might be able to read, but do you know which word is which? Can you break the Gurbani up yourself? And that comes back to Sodji as well, so understanding the Gurbani too. If you don't have an understanding, then you won't be able to properly split the words up, get the Vishram, so the pauses correctly. And
So how many lessons were you doing a week to get through this? Because my students will say to me, it's my fault because I didn't do one lesson a week. So.
Yeah, well, I was doing around, at this point, I was doing around an average of 4 a week. It depended on my availability, but I was doing an average of 4 a week. That's throughout kind of my time at university and things like that, the holidays before
You're
that.
doing your abhyas as well? Pachivari abhyas?
Yeah.
So everything's practiced 25 times as well. So that's respect.
Amazing.
Yeah, that really is. It's heartwarming to hear that.
And I would have recently, if you don't mind sharing, just again, this is all again to inspire the Sangat. Guru Kirpa Rakhe, they keep us all humble. But I know you also teach or you help support people learning how to be Gurumukhi as well, right?
Well, you have to, isn't it? If you're going to learn from a Sikhi perspective, whatever you learn, you have to give it to somebody else, and you have to pass it on. That's part of langar as well. That's a form of langar. Talk about langar in terms of food, but giving vidya away, so giving knowledge and tradition away is a part of langar as well.
My Guru.
Beautiful.
So, that in the space of 2-3 years, right, to be doing that's so inspiring, Guru Kirpa Rakhe, for the Sangat as well to apply that into their lives, including us as well.
Just moving on then, what was it like? So you've become a Sangh now, you've got so many experiences, you've met now Sangat and people of your age, you've done a little bit of talks, you help with Santhya. So looking back at this, the last couple of years of experience you've had, what is the most difficult thing you've experienced as being a Sikh?
The most difficult thing as being a Sikh?
That could be personal, that could be within the community, that could be within the Punjabis exclusively, that could be on the street, anything.
I think just in general, it's not one specific thing, but it's explanation. And so that's on account of explaining everything to my family, friends, people I go to uni with, things like that. You're a white Sikh, how does that happen? Things like that, And then the other end of it, which is explaining myself to Sangat, who am I? What is my journey? Things like that.
Bro, we've answered that for you. Just send them the link to this video.
So just send us. So that's why I say, it says, do you feel like you're always explaining?
It does feel like that sometimes. I'm not complaining. When people ask me, it's a blessing, isn't it? To be able to explain to people and maybe inspire somebody. But It's a bit jarring sometimes.
Can you translate jarring for us?
Yeah,
it's a
I
bit-
don't know what that
It's a bit
means.
tiring.
I didn't know that.
I don't know. Yeah, it's-
Generation gap. But literally now, just put a QR code in your phone, and whenever someone asks you, just say, scan this code, like, share, and subscribe.
And then on the other side, so what advice would you give to someone who's coming into Sikhi?
Someone from outside of, let's say, Punjabi household or...
Let's do that and the Punjabi Sikh, because I think sometimes the conversation should be about bringing everyone back home to Sikhi and bringing everyone towards the Guru's way to clean up their life, to clean up their actions. So yeah, let's start with people from a non-Punjabi background. What advice would you give to them?
The biggest hurdle for anyone from kind of outside is, if anyone's looking to Sikhi as much as I did, there's something there, there's a spark there, isn't it? And so that's in their karam. And so it only takes a little bit of a push to get past whatever it is, in terms of getting them on the path. And so anyone who has kind of curiosity about Sikhi, I think the most important thing is just to understand that if the only thing is stopping you is anxieties and things like that, all of those things are temporary already, isn't it? But we don't know when we're going to die, for example. We don't know when we're going to die. Hansa Sarvar Kal Sarir comes in Gurbani. It's like, imagine death is like a swan, and our body is like the water. So the swan is constantly swimming above us. Death is right on our heads all the time. It's not far away just because we're young or healthy or anything like that. So you have to grab the opportunity. If you want to come into Sikhi, you got to do it. You can't. There's no hesitation.
Beautifully pronounced as well. So I would just, in all, like someone over 3 years, so much effort, it just gives so much hope. And then advice to someone who's from a Punjabi background. And I love the point you made earlier, which was no one's born a Sikh. That's like really, again, another profound, very reflective comment. I think we should tear that apart another day. But what would you say to those who are born as a Punjabi Sikh household, but haven't really, or don't really act like a Sikh? Use those words. What advice would you give to them?
If you go to the Gurdwara, even if it's once a year for Diwali or whatever, or if it's once a week, every single time you go, you've got an opportunity to build a physical, personal relationship with the Guru Sahib. If you don't do that, then you're not going to get anywhere else. That's the first step. And so you're already going to the place. You're already going to the place where that happens. You just have to internally kind of start to build that relationship. It's a very personal thing. Mamata is a word that we use often to describe kind of like almost a form of ego. But that word mamata is about ownership and things like that. And there's almost a positive aspect to using our ego. We can go, that's my Guru. We always say that my Guru is Guru Gobind Singh Ji, my Guru is Guru Granth Sahib Ji. If we do that in the right way, then slowly we're going to build a connection with the Guru Sahib. So if you're already going to the Gurdwara, change your outlook, your drishti, change the way you kind of look at Guru Sahib. To think that is my Guru.
And it's nice, and using the word of mamta as well, is that, and that drishti is like, if you're going to Gurdwara once a year, you're going for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe just start looking into that question.
What is that reason?
What is that reason? And then look at that idea of, why?
Yeah, because whenever I see a story of someone coming into Sikhi from a Punjabi household, it's always a moment where suddenly they realize what Sikhi is. They realize why they kind of mindlessly go into the Gurdwara. Something awakens in their mind, and that's when the change happens. And it's always that. And so you just have to do that activation, basically.
Yeah. Activation.
Carry on.
So-
I'm just in awe. I'm just saying. I'm retired now.
Yeah. What would you say the most rewarding? We've come towards the end of the podcast now, and I've been recording for a couple of hours already. I know it doesn't feel like it, but we've been here for a while already.
Yeah.
And thank you for you're a young man, but you're giving such insightful comments and makes an old man like me think twice. What would you say the most rewarding part of your journey has been?
The most rewarding part is this bit. You know what I mean? The bit where you start to make an impact on other people. I don't want to sound like I'm pumping myself up or anything, but just literally getting the opportunity to come on this podcast. I've done talks before, even when it's at like kids camps and things like that. That's the best part, is passing it on to the next person, isn't it? It's fine having one person having Sikhi is incredible, but if you can pass it on to 5 other people, then that's the magic of it for me personally. So yeah, this is the best bit.
Yeah, and it's beautiful because you're someone's invested in you. Your stardust, your teacher invested so much time into you 4 times a week. That's they've taken time out from their family to do that. And there's often the nishani of, or the symbol of a good, I think symbol is the right word, I don't know what the right word is, but the characteristic of a good teacher is how many good students and teachers he creates.
Yeah, exactly.
And the same way, it's someone's invested in you. Now, how much are you willing to invest in other people and pass that knowledge on, pass that love on, pass those blessings on? So I think, again, really nice.
Just big up to all the stars out there. I don't want to say any names because I've got so many in my head, but because I might forget someone's name. All the Guru Sikhs that teach Santhya, teach Gurbani, across the UK, across the world, because it's such a huge seva that they're doing. And, what they're able to pass on, what they've earned themselves, right? And they're able to pass on, and those that are fortunate to earn that as well and pass it on is such a big blessing, right?
I mean, it's not easy. It's a big commitment for those people, isn't it? Like in Leicester, we have Santhya classes every single day, in the morning and the evening. Kirtan classes, same thing. And so that takes a bunch of people to be able to do properly.
We'll put a link in the description to different places, especially in Leicester as well, where Santhya classes do happen. So if you are watching this, there's loads of classes available in person. And if you are tech savvy, you could find classes online, especially in Australia. So everywhere you can find classes.
It just shows if you want something, you find a way, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's on the other side of the world, literally, and there's no excuse. And as we keep moving through, just what books and resources would you recommend to someone who's interested in? Because I can imagine there's a lot of people who are watching this and thinking, "This is me. Like, I'm just a normal lad from a normal family, and." Like, how do I make that step? What would you say are resources and books?
I think we talked about struggling to read Gurbani without context and things. The biggest form of context is Itihas, isn't it? History. And so I would say personally, because this is something I did, is go through Pant Prakash in English. It's been all translated. So Pant Prakash, it's in 2 volumes by Ratan Singh Pangu. That's one of the biggest historical texts on Sikhi. It's not perfect, it's of its time and things like that. But if you read that, you'll get a comprehensive understanding of kind of Sikh history, or at least enough to be able to understand what is Gurbani talking about. And I would say, I mean, it worked for me. Just read Gurbani English translations. There's a lot of different commentaries out there. English people have done commentaries. There's a bunch of different kind of sources for things like that. But I think the most important base, at least for me in understanding, was Itihas.
I think sometimes we almost demonize reading in English, like translations and stuff like that. And more recently, I've gone right back on that and saying, you know what, the English translations can do kirpa as well, man. Like, the pankti in my mind comes like, the ocean is so vast and big, but you will save me.
Sounds so nice.
Is a pankti? I'm trying to find it, and they go, okay, dubbana dei mapiri, that you will not let me drown. Even though this ocean is so vast. And I think, I could read that in English for days at end. And
I think it was little gems like that when it does translate properly. That's what hooked me, and that's what kind of touched my heart.
And hopefully with the Guru's blessing, you'll sort these English translations out to make them more...
it's a big job.
That's it. Well, Kallu Ardas, Kallu Dekh Raha Ke. Don't do Ardas, we want me to do Lagga Seva, Sadi Seva, Chilak. Because it's good to sound articulate, very smart, articulate young man with a good understanding of not just Sikhi but a good basis on other faiths, theology, the Bhakti movement, as we were speaking before as well. It's just all of that feeds into understanding Gurbani. You can't just look at Gurbani in isolation alone. You have to look at the environment Gurbani was written in. You've got to look at the world as well. So I think there's so much there.
So you remind me of actually a good point I wanted to ask earlier. You spoke about reading different scripts, right, and texts. You spoke about reading the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, different Hindu scripts as well. There's this common thing out there that Sikhi is like just a mixture of Islam and Hinduism put together. When you were looking at Sikhi, what were your thoughts on this? Like, there's Islam, there's Hinduism. Now I'm looking at Sikhi. Was you thinking that, like, it's just... What were your thoughts? And because again, and other people say, Sikh and Hindu are the same thing anyway, especially the Bhakti aspect to it. So sorry, two questions. I'm chucking a lot at you right now, but I feel you can answer it. Good kid, but okay. One is how did you see that in terms of both Islam and Hinduism compared to Sikhi? And then the second thing that comes out of that, if you can remember the two questions, is what was the unique selling point of Sikhi then? Because then someone might say, why don't you become a Hindu then? Like Bhagavad Gita, people will say that, it's quite similar, or like Hare Krishnas and stuff, very similar to Sikhi. So why didn't you go down that route? What interested you in Sikhi?
Okay, the first question, this idea of like combined, is Islam and Hinduism, is that what made Sikhi? You can take any two religions and say it makes another religion.
Such a flawed idea.
You could say that, because there's similar ideas, right? Because ultimately, like we said earlier, Gyan is Gyan, and it might be somewhere, it might be another place.
Yeah.
Gyan could be in your math textbook as well, like it could be anywhere, isn't it? It doesn't mean that. It doesn't.
I'm a maths teacher.
It doesn't mean that like that there's some sort of like conspiracy and it's the combination, or there's some sort of plagiarism going.
Well, you made the question sound so dumb.
You really do. You shredded it because you articulate it so well, because it's such a silly, flawed question.
But then we also have to be honest in terms of those similarities. We can't deny them and say, no, Islam's nothing like Sikhi. There is similarities there. And if you start denying it, then you're going to make yourself look stupid as well.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of similarities in terms of philosophy, both with Islam and Sikhi, Sufism especially, and Sikhi, and then Hinduism and Sikhi. There's a lot of similar concepts. Practicing Hindus talk about the idea of getting darshan, doing bhakti, all these things come in Gurbani all the time. And so the other question you asked was about kind of what's the selling point of Sikhi? And I think that's also a cop-out question, because there's a million different selling points of Sikhi. We're saying all these things are less valuable because they're also somewhere else. But that's the beauty, is that it's here in Sikhi all together as one formula. That Gyan that can change your life. So there's this idea that Gyan is kind of the Maya. So Maya, this world, this creation, it blinds us, isn't it? And this idea that Gyan is basically the enemy of Maya. And so the more we accumulate Gyan, the more we read a Gurbani, then we're going to be able to cut through that Maya. And if we do that, then there's no different religions, isn't it? And so all of that Gyan is all in Sikhi. So Sikhi is just pure Gyan.
Thank you, bro. Killed it. Good, bro. Carry on. That was just my question from earlier I was thinking about.
Yeah, and that kind of links to the final point, but I don't want you to that final comment to influence that the final question, because it's independent. But you may say it again. You could clip this bit out, but just FYI. So I'll start the question. If there's one message or teaching from Sikhi you'd want everyone to understand, what would it be?
I think we do prachar of all the kind of spiritual side and things like that all the time, and all those things are there in Gurbani already. But one thing we often ignore that comes constantly in Gurbani and Ittihas, like Guru Nanak Dev Ji themselves were doing a lot, is pointing out hypocrisy. So that's in our own community, that's outside as well. If we don't point out hypocrisy, it's like a virus, it will spread. And eventually, the leaders in the Panth might become, the wrong people that shouldn't be in charge. That might have already happened. I don't want to say too much about, And so if we don't point out hypocrisy, then it's going to start crumbling the Panth away. So, it's going to start crumbling society up.
3 years and knows all the politics as well.
Yeah, he
knows. Is he studying politics of the world, or is he
his A-level essays about politics? Yeah. Again, I think, hypocrisy. I'm just reflective myself of your comment. I think it's a real big thing, and it's almost what we were talking about earlier. Was there's no point me putting one persona on stage and then on my own level, one persona behind the cameras are switched off, and having that oneness and being genuine and truth to yourself and to the Guru. We're going to end with a quick fire round. Anything else you want to, anything?
No, that's everything.
Fantastic, bro.
Yeah, thank you.
So actually one question is, what are you doing right now then? In terms of your university, what you're studying?
Yeah, so I'm in...
How's your Sikhi?
Yeah.
Are you learning other Granths as well? Because it sounds like you're not just reading Gurbani in that case.
So I'm studying politics and international relations, second year, University of Leicester. And I'm I'm thinking of going into politics at some point, but it's a dirty game, isn't it, politics? And so I'm kind of veering away from working for government. Probably, maybe make my own organization, something like that. But I definitely want my career to be in politics. In terms of Sikhi, my current journey, I'm just trying my best in it, and going to programs, but also I've been through so we have something called the Granthavali, which is a kind of a series of granths, historically were taught in kind of taksars, kind of Sikh institutions. And so I've gone through them in English with an ustad as well. That's also massively helpful in terms of application and helping you kind of
understanding concepts, understanding words, and understanding
So that's been very helpful. And then I do my own reading. I kind of go from book to book. I've been doing that kind of since since it all started, if you know what I mean.
You've been to India?
No.
That's the big one. That's
not
the
been
big
to India, which is such that's my biggest thing, man. Is like it's very difficult to get there for me because explaining it to my parents, I'm going on this trip. It's not a holiday. It's not a
It's no beach.
It's not the same as going. It's not a tourist trip.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. And so explaining that, like what a yatra actually is, finding the right people to go with, things like that, getting the money to do it as a student as well. I think there's been a few cases where I've nearly gone, and then someone's cancelled or the plane tickets have got expensive or something like that. But Marish Garpa eventually I'll get there.
Which one? Sorry, I'm going off on tangent. I know you got the quick fire one. If you were to go to India, where would you love to visit? Like you've read so much history, you've done so much. Is there a certain place that I'd love to go there, or certain places you'd love to go in India? Do you have a list?
The place I'm most excited to go to is Hazur Sahib, if I'm honest, because of the amount of things I've heard, people staying there, that it literally feels like Guru Gobind Singh is there. And so that's and also just visually. Like I remember seeing videos of Darbar Sahib and Hazur Sahib back in the day and just being in awe, like, whoa, this looks incredible. This does look like heaven on earth. You know what I mean? I just want to go. Yeah.
Good. Sorry.
No, it's all good. So, quick fire round. So, whoever comes into your brain straight away, we're just going to end the podcast. Don't be afraid to say names and call people out if you have to, for the good, I hope.
Not hypocrisy.
Yeah. Not, this kid is good, but he does none of that. So, favourite Kirtani?
Favorite Kirtani? It depends on the time anyway. Right now, I'm listening to Bhai Pradeep Singh Amritsar quite a lot.
Okay. Favourite Pracharak, Kathawachak?
Favorite Pracharak? So, I have to say Bhai Jagraj Singh. But there's another thing. I have to mention Sant Baba Ishwar Singh, Rara Sahib Wali. Because I used to listen to their diwans before I could even understand any Punjabi. I would just sit there like in awe. Even if I couldn't understand any of it, I wouldn't skip the katha bit and just go to the kirtan. I would listen to all of it. But that was just incredible as well. So I have to say that.
Favourite food?
Favorite food.
Lamb curry?
Used to be lamb curry.
Mexican food in general. Because you can have it with meat, but you can make all Mexican food, you can make it veggie the exact same and it tastes the exact same. So just all Mexican food in general.
Nice.
So if you could have any superpower, Riddhiyan Siddhiyan, what would it be?
Teleportation.
Where would you teleport to?
India. Hazur Sahib straight away.
There's no ticket cost that way.
Exactly.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice. God, that's a hard one.
Disconi?
Yeah, that's a good one to be fair.
Keeps them underground. Yeah. Keeps you grounded.
No, I think one piece of advice recently is gurusevak.com Singh was in the country with a few other Singhs with him. We spent a lot of time with Bhagat Jaswant Singh in Canada. And one thing they always talk about, I was lucky enough to kind of speak with them whilst they were here quite a lot, and is this idea of going slowly, taking everything slowly, whether that's eating slowly, making kind of mindful eating, We always like
took
gobble our
ages.
food down so much. Now we get into just.
He came over and he took ages eating, to be fair. I was done in a couple of minutes. He was there still.
And I was eating with them once, and it was like, oh my gosh, I finished like, and they were like 5 minutes still going. But it's good because it's everything. It's about the way your mind is wired, but also your digestion as well. But then just reading Gurbani as well. We love rushing out Nityanim. We love, everything's about going as quickly as you can for us. It's good if you can read Gurbani quickly. It shows competence. But the other thing is like, if you read it slowly, personally, I found I enjoy it much more. I get much more out of it if I read Gurbani slowly. So doing everything slowly.
Nice.
Coming into Sikhi, sometimes that's a bit quick, but
What's your most embarrassing public moment?
It's not recent, but when I was about 4 or 5, I went to Buckingham Palace, and I got my head stuck in the gate, and the police had to help me get it out. And I thought they were gonna like chop my head off. Terrified. But yeah, that's an embarrassing one.
Hopefully there's a picture of that somewhere.
I don't think there is. I think it was so like panicked of getting me out. There's no picture.
And if you could meet someone, anyone, dead or alive, who would you meet?
I would say there's a billion people you can say in it. Probably for me personally, Sant Gyani Guru Bachan Singh Ji. They're one of the greatest scholars of kind of the last 100 years, and the amount now that I understand Punjabi, you can listen to Katha. That's my go-to Katha. So you just get more and more questions in your head. You want to ask them about their Katha, So I think them personally, Vardima Purkha would go, and I would want to meet them. Obviously Guru Sahib, but that's a bit of a cop-out answer.
So we have a tradition on the podcast where the guest leaves one word for the next guest. So the word by Dharamveer Singh left in his Scottish accent was Chardi Kala.
I thought you were doing the accent as
I
well.
was going to try. I'm basically wrong and then embarrass myself and tamanna kara. So yeah, Chardi Kala. What does the word Chardi Kala mean to you?
Chardi Kala. That's a good one. The simplest English translation is like resilience, isn't it? The Sikh model of resilience is like something really unique. Like when I was reading Pant Prakash for the first time, this relationship with death that Singhs had back in the day, and even some do have now. This idea that dying is actually something we're waiting for, or we actually get into bliss when we're going towards death and things like that. Having that mindset, if you can overcome the fear of death and anything, you can throw anything at that person and they'll be fine. Sikhs have nearly been wiped out however many times over history, isn't it? And some people might have given up at that point. Oh, I'll just become a Muslim, I'll just become a Hindu, I'll just integrate. Or you can do the opposite, which is try and keep the Pant alive. And I think that's something I've not seen it anywhere else. I've not seen that level of resilience anywhere else. I think Chardi Kala is a very unique concept to Sikhi.
Beautiful. And one word for the next guest?
Daya. Compassion.
What does compassion mean? Okay, we'll pass that on.
Thank you so much, bro, for coming on the podcast. Bishan Singh, I appreciate, of course, when someone takes Amrit, we say the Shabad, Satguru ke janme govern bataya. Are you happy to share what your previous name was?
Yeah, my name still is to an extent Sam Ashton, in terms of, like you said, sometimes you keep two identities, isn't it? In terms of like
passport identity.
Passport, ID, is my legal name still is Sam Ashton.
Yeah.
My family still call me Sam. Even at my work, I'm called Sam.
What did you do? Yeah. Where do you work?
So I work at a daycare center for people with learning disabilities. Yeah, it's a really good job. Yeah.
Yep, that's it. Just want to know your previous name. It just would be nice to know as well. So Sam, aka Bishan Singh. Well, thank you so much, Bishan Singh. You've been fantastic on this podcast. Great answers, man. Killed it, Guru Kirpa. Again, we hope with Guru's grace that they always keep you in Chardi Kala, always keep you in their Charan, and always, with this humble nature as well. But yeah, it's been a fantastic episode. Any final words from yourself?
It's made me think a lot more, just reflect. And sometimes you laugh things off as a guest, but this one has been like, it's really profound, some of the comments you made. So I really hope with Guru Sahib there, you continue to give back to the community.
And thank you to yourself for organizing this, because a lot of times we can including myself, get caught up in the seva that we're doing. But I think this, even for myself, it gives a lot of hope, that going forward, Guru Kirpa, that if Guru Sahib Ji wants, anybody can follow this path, and it can become as fluid in that case. Sote Siddh in that case, like quite easy. It not I don't use the word easy, but it can flow naturally. Other people can become obstacles. So definitely big inspiration for everyone watching this, including myself. And to the Sangat watching at home, if you've got any questions, please put them in the comment section. Make sure you make sure you share this video. That's probably the most important thing, right? Share it with your friends, share it with your family, get it out to everybody. Let's get this message out of finding Sikhi, and again, the greatness of our Guru. And please forgive any mistakes made, any bad jokes made by us. It was fantastic. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Waheguru.
ਕਿ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਇੱਕ ਕੈਥੋਲਿਕ ਈਸਾਈ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੀ ਤਰਫ ਆਇਆ। ਉਹਨੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਮਜ਼ਹਬ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਧਰਮਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਤਾਲਿਆ ਕੀਤਾ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਆਖਰਕਾਰ ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨੇ ਫਾਲੋ ਕੀਤਾ। ਉਹ ਕਹਿ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਕਿਉਂ ਅਪਣਾਇਆ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਆਣ ਕੇ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਲੱਗਾ। ਉਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਫੀਲਿੰਗ ਇਸ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ। ਉਹ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਈਸਾਈ ਸੀ ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਮੁਖਤਲਿਫ ਜਾਂ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਰਿਲੀਜੀਅਨ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਧਰਮ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਮਤਾਲਿਆ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੋਟ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਹਰ ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੁਖਤਲਿਫ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਨੇ। ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਈਸਾਈ ਧਰਮ ਦਾ ਮਤਾਲਿਆ ਕੀਤਾ, ਫਿਰ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਧਰਮ ਦਾ ਮਤਾਲਿਆ ਕੀਤਾ, ਇਸਲਾਮ ਧਰਮ ਦਾ ਮਤਾਲਿਆ ਕੀਤਾ, ਆਖਿਰਕਾਰ ਮੈਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ ਮਤਾਲਿਆ ਕੀਤਾ। ਅਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੇਰੀ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੀ ਤਰਫ ਲਾਈਫ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ, ਮੇਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਿੱਖਿਜ਼ਮ 'ਚ ਮੈਂ ਆ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ, ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ ਮੇਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਜਾਰੀ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਉਹ ਬੜੇ ਅੱਛੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਬਿਆਨ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਧਰਮ ਨੂੰ ਮਾੜਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕੁਰਾਨ ਪਾਕ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ, ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਕੁਰਾਨ ਪਾਕ ਦੇ ਮੁਤਾਬਕ ਆਪਣੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੁਜ਼ਾਰ ਰਹੇ। ਹਾਲਾਂਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਕੁਰਾਨ ਪਾਕ ਦੇ ਹਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵਰਸ ਹੈ, ਹਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਲਾਈਨ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਸੱਚੀ ਅਤੇ ਖਰੀ ਹੈ। ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਖਿਆ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਮੂਲ ਮੰਤਰ ਮੈਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ, ਅਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੂਲ ਮੰਤਰ ਮੈਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬਦਲੀ, ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਧਰਮ ਨੂੰ ਅਪਣਾਇਆ, ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਨੂੰ ਅਪਣਾਇਆ, ਅਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ ਡੇਲੀ ਮਤਾਲਿਆ ਕਰਨਾ ਵਾ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਅੱਛਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੋਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੇਸਿਸ ਨੇ ਦੋਸਤੋ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਲੋਕ ਆਪਣਾ ਮਤਾਲਿਆ ਜਾਂ ਰਿਸਰਚ ਜਾਰੀ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਨੇ, ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਇੱਕ ਨਾ ਇੱਕ ਟਾਈਮ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਧਰਮ ਨੂੰ ਫਾਲੋ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਨੇ। ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਐਥੀਸਟ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹਦਾ ਰੱਬ 'ਤੇ ਯਕੀਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਅਸੀਂ ਰੱਬ ਦੀ ਪਹਿਚਾਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਰੱਬ ਨੂੰ ਹਾਸਿਲ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਖਰਕਾਰ ਉਹਨੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੋਂ ਮੂਲ ਮੰਤਰ ਤੋਂ ਰੱਬ ਦੀ ਤਲਾਸ਼ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਕਨਫਰਮ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਖੁਦਾ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਇਸ ਕਾਇਨਾਤ ਨੂੰ, ਜੋ ਇਸ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਚਲਾ ਰਿਹਾ, ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਕਬਜ਼ਾ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਹੱਥ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਸਾਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦਾ, ਸਾਰੀ ਕਾਇਨਾਤ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸ ਦਾ ਨਿਜ਼ਾਮ ਹੈ। ਤੋ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਇਸ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਵਧੀਆ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਸੀ। ਅਤੇ ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਦੋਸਤੋ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਪਸੰਦ ਆਈ ਹੋਣੀ। ਅਗਰ ਪਸੰਦ ਆਈ ਚੈਨਲ ਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਾਇਓ ਜੇ। ਮਿਲਾਂਗੇ ਨਵੀਂ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਨਾਲ। ਆਪਣਾ ਖਿਆਲ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਜੇ। ਅੱਲਾਹ ਨਿਗਹਿਬਾਨ।